We all want the same thing at bottom, just to be cared for and loved and to not be suffering. All people, even all beings, want this. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to feel pain. And we just want to feel loved. And at bottom, we're all this. We're all still a child deep down that just wants to be listened to and heard and watched and loved. We seek validation. Often we seek validation from external means, whether that be social media, whether that be the approval of other people when it comes to texting people, asking if they want to make plans. When we get a rejection, it hurts, makes us feel sad. Some people more than others. Some people feel deeply, some people feel a little more subtle. And often people that are called, quote, empaths are a little more sensitive. We tend to feel things a little more. We feel things like love maybe more, and pain maybe more. And sensitive is not a bad thing. It just means that we feel deeply. But at bottom, we all want to be cherished, validated. They do studies with children that they're learning to crawl on the floor, and they always look behind them to see if their parent is watching them. And when they see that their parent is watching them, they're happy. When they see that their parent isn't watching them, they cry. But this is perfectly healthy. But often we spend a lot of time in judgment, whether that be the judgment towards others, whether that be the judgment towards ourselves. And we tend to blame and even shame ourselves. If we go to the bar and we see someone we like and we get rejected, we feel sad. But we don't usually stop there, unfortunately. Usually our brain starts blaming ourselves and shaming ourselves. Well, if this person rejected me, what's wrong with me? Did I look at her too long? Did I break eye contact? Did I not offer to buy her a drink? Was my hair looking weird? Was it weird because I wasn't with any friends? Did it look weird I was by myself? Did she see something about me that made her question whether she wanted to be with me? All of these things, just this continuous manufacturing of self-blame and self-shame really takes a toll. Fortunately, this is often the default mode. This goes back to the judgment. And the thing about thoughts is we can't say that we authored them, that they are thoughts that we created. Maybe our brain created them, but we, this consciousness, this awareness, of course, did not create the thought. How could we have thought of a thought before we noticed it? It doesn't make sense. So often the blame comes by these bombardments of these self-shame and judgment thoughts. But when we realize that the thoughts aren't ours to take ownership of, then we can begin to realize that what we are is separate from the thoughts. We are this conscious awareness, and different thoughts come into our awareness in the same way that sounds and feelings in the body and tastes and smells and our visual field appear in our awareness. But thoughts are sneaky. They kind of become intertwined in our mind, unlike any other sense. I guess we could call thoughts the sixth sense in some way. So the importance of separating ourselves from our thoughts is monumental. So we can also talk about how we can work with this. How can we break this spell and this pattern of these blaming and the shaming? Well, the answer is compassion, kindness. First with ourselves and with others as well. So when we have the ability to have compassion for ourselves, the ability to turn judgment into self-forgiveness and self-compassion, this is what can alleviate and stop this cycle, the bombardment of shame and blame. And when we realize that what truly matters in this life is love, we can combat this. I'd also like to talk about a little technique we can use when we feel fear or sadness or anger, whether that be in the moment, in the situation we're in, or we notice a thought that's very negative and blaming, or we're rerunning some failure in our past. What we can do is we can add something positive in that moment, a positive thought. For example, let's say we are alone and we start getting lonely, and maybe we start having a thought in our mind arise, and this story arise, of something negative in our past that happened. Let's say we said the wrong thing to a friend, or we were in a fight with a friend, or a family member, or a boss, or some mistake we made. And these thoughts are coming in our mind. What we can do is we can throw in something positive. This could be some sort of vision in your head of something positive, something that you love. For example, you can picture yourself hugging your family. You can picture yourself indulging in your favorite hobby. You can picture yourself cuddling with your pet. Or you can remember a thought and bring it to mind of something positive that has happened in the past. And when you infuse a positive thought like this in a moment of a negative thought or experience, it lessens the intensity of the negative phenomena, emotion, and it shortens its half-life, or the amount of time it lasts. And if you keep practicing this, each time you notice something negative or frustrating, whether you're in traffic or you're stressed at work, maybe a client was misunderstanding and reactive, maybe your boss was frustrating, or could have been rerunning some argument you had the day before. Whatever that situation may be, infusing something positive that has happened, or just something you can think of that makes you happy, again, can reduce the effects of the negative emotion. can even draw an analogy to the Harry Potter series. If you've watched the Harry Potter series, you've probably seen the Dementors. And we can envision these Dementors analogous to the negative thoughts and experiences. In the movies, the Dementors actually feed off the positivity and the love you experience. And what combats them is a spell. And the way to enact the spell in Harry Potter is to think of a memory or a thought that maybe hasn't happened, but you can structure it in your mind. Either one of these. Something that just takes over you and makes you happier than any other thing you can think of. It actually combats those Dementors. For example, you can think of, I'll just keep going with this analogy. So what Harry Potter does in this series is the memory he thinks of. Both of his parents have passed when he was a child. What he thinks of is he saw a mirror one day, and in this mirror it shows your loved ones that have passed. And he saw his mother and his father with their hands on his shoulder. And even though he never met them, or can remember meeting them because he was so young, it engulfs him and makes him happier than any other thing could think of. So he saw at one point in one of the movies 100 of these Dementors, which is a massive amount that almost no wizard could combat. And he thought of this memory, and it saved his life. So when we can take a step back in a negative experience and remember this moment, and remember to think of something happier than anything that can make you happy, a memory in the past or something you can construct, it makes a massive difference. I actually got this piece of information from a book called Buddha's Brain. Great book. So if you're ever interested in that, it's a great book. Once again, it's called Buddha's Brain. So next, what we can also talk about here is the way we can manage our emotions. So our emotions have two aspects. They have the thoughts, the story, and then there's the feelings in our body. Often, we get so captured by the thoughts that it takes away from our ability to digest the emotion. Because the core of the emotion, what's another word for emotions? Feelings. And that's really the core of emotions. The physical feelings, the feelings in your body that arise during the half-life of that emotion. So often what happens is the core of the emotion is this feeling in our body. But our mind creates this story once it notices this feeling. It triggers this thought pattern. And it creates this story and this layer of reasons and things to blame, things we should have controlled, things we could have done differently, or reasons why this feeling happened, why it's our fault, why we don't deserve to be validated because someone else hurt us and something must be wrong with us, which is of course not true. But this is a habitual thing our mind does when we experience an emotion. So we want to move from the mind and the thoughts and into the body. And by soaking in our awareness into our body when we're experiencing emotions, by feeling the sensations in our body. This might sound strange, but for example, when we feel sadness, our mind might go, I don't have any friends, I've always been a loser, what's wrong with me, why am I so awkward? We might have memories of the past when we were exiled from a friend group, or we were shamed by a teacher or a parent or any other family member or friend or acquaintance or stranger. And somehow our mind constructs all of these judgments, but what we can do is stop there, bring our awareness to our body. For example, when we feel sadness, we often feel loss. And when we can examine and zoom in to what it feels like to be sad, going deep down, feeling the subtle feelings. For example, let's say I'm feeling sad right now. I might close my eyes, I might take some deep breaths. You don't have to do this now. You can if you want to. But this is kind of how it goes. So this is happening. My mind's thinking all of these reasons. And I'm going to move from my head down to my body. I'm going to zoom in and soak in and absorb and fully soak into my body and examine where I feel a physical sensation the strongest. Often when we're sad, we might feel kind of in our heart, in between our heart and our throat. We might feel pressure. We might feel some sort of emptiness. And also, let's say we are angry. What we might feel is a feeling of strong tension, feeling of this surge and this excess of energy. Let's say if we feel impatient, we might feel tension arise in our jaw and our shoulders. So different physical feelings we can notice might have to do with temperature or tingling or vibration or some sort of pulsing or any other strong sensation that we can notice that's subtle. Vibration, tension, coolness, warmth, constricting, holding. We don't necessarily have to keep a tally and label all the different ones and the different categories, but that's just to get an idea of what we can connect with in the body. And it always helps to take some deep breaths. And another good breathing exercise we can do, I'll give 2 different breathing exercises we can do. Actually 3, and you can pick one. You don't necessarily have to do it now, but I'll show you how to use it. And then in your own time, you can use this to regulate your emotions, to regulate your mental state, to bring to your awareness more clarity and ease and peace. So the first breathing exercise we can do is we can just breathe in, breathe out, count 1. Breathe in, breathe out, count 2. And you can do this until you get to 10. And then you can start over. And you're going to quickly realize that the mind is going to become distracted. Maybe you get to 3. Oh, I'm thinking. Okay, let me go back to counting. Breathing in, breathing out, 4, and continue. Another breathing exercise we can do is what's called an ocean breathing. So we basically breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out, with not much of a hesitation in between. Having not really a space between the in and the exhale. Just like an ocean. The last breathing exercise we can do is kind of mixed with the visualization. But we can, as we're breathing in, we picture we're breathing in white light. And when we're breathing out black smoke. And this symbolizes when we're breathing in white light, the goodness, the love. And when we're breathing out the black smoke, any tension or negativity. So those are 3 different breathing exercises you can do in your own time. Any moment you feel overwhelmed, sad or stressed or anxious or distracted, whatever it is, or if you just want to do it just to practice. Because there's two different ways we can meditate: proactive and reactive. And I'm not saying one's better than the other. Both are extremely helpful. So the reactive approach is often where we start. That's when we're feeling overwhelmed in a moment, and then we come back to one of these practices to help us calm. And the proactive approach is just practicing during a normal time when you're not necessarily going through something very stressful. And you're just practicing, and that's laying the groundwork and the foundation by making changes in your brain so that when you feel stressed out next time, you're going to react to it differently. So both of these approaches are extremely helpful. So you can use one of those or all of those breathing exercises to help with this, managing our stress level. And you can also use that tactic of when you're experiencing stress or any other emotion by coming back away from the mind and the stories, and into the body and what we feel. And those feelings might be subtle at first and hard to connect with. But in the same way you can feel your two hands touching, in the same way you can feel your hands on your knees, in the same way you can feel your feet on the ground, in the same way you can feel your butt on the chair, in the same way you can feel tension in your jaw and soften it, in the same way you can feel tension in your shoulders and soften it. There's those subtle sensations percolating in our body, really at every moment, but particularly when we're going through a stressful emotion. And we can connect with those, and we can learn to use those and those breathing exercises to bring to mind and bring to our wholeness, equanimity, which is this term, that is this contentness, this stability under really any other circumstance, that we can feel that calm and that peaceful energy. Thanks for joining me again. Please reach out for any questions. Have a great day. I hope this was helpful. And keep in mind these tools you can use at any time. Have a great rest of your week, and thanks for joining.